All right, so who do I have here on my notes? I got Howie Long.
You got to look on your notes, huh?
I do have notes. There's a lot to remember.
Just saw you a couple of days ago.
Well, you walk in and immediately, what do we start talking about? The trophies. You want to start there?
Well, people don't realize. I mean, I as most good dads would do. I mean, I got you a replica of your Super Bowl trophies. When I ordered yours, I ordered myself 2 of them. And, I had my Super Bowl trophy, your 2 Super Bowl trophies in my library. And I came back from Arizona or Montana, and my Super Bowl trophies were gone. And you informed me, well, they're technically my Super Bowls. And I said, well, I bought all 4 of the damn Super Bowls, so why can't I have my Super Bowl trophies?
No, it doesn't work that way.
So now you have 2 Super Bowl trophies here and 2 at home.
Well, I'm going to get you for Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
Are you going to get 2 more for your
you.
Montana crib?
No, for you.
Yeah.
For you. I'm going to get 2 for you. I had eminent domain over those trophies. I don't know if you know how that works, but it's just, we've been talking about CenturyLink a lot around here and some of their transgressions, so I should mention that.
I missed that one.
Well, you got to listen to the podcast.
I do. I listen with Mom a lot.
What do you think about my co-host?
Athletic, edgy, twitchy.
Yeah.
Good vertical.
You saw the combine stuff.
Oh, boy, did I see the combine.
Do you think you could jump higher than Macon at 61?
61 with 14 surgeries?
Yeah,
yes.
You do think you can?
Oh, God, yeah.
You could clear a 12-inch vert.
God, yeah.
At this point.
I think your mom can clear a 12-inch vert.
I can't tell if that's a shot at her athleticism.
And
she's more side to side than straight. She's
Meg can.
Yeah, Meg can.
Meg's pretty. You got to stop
wife.
Meg. She ran what, a 5.7, then she ran a 5.6, and
yeah, just like we were running 40s at this combine thing that Macon and I had. If some of y'all missed it, where we were doing like the Green Light Combine, and I showed up and ran a 5.1. I was happy with that, but then my lovely wife showed up, and her job was to smoke Macon, just run right by him, and she did that like the first time. But then her time started getting better and better. And I was like, babe, don't you have something to do? I was like, you're closing in on my time here. Dad, happy early Father's Day.
Thank you.
Is it a lifelong journey?
Oh, it is. And,
Fatherhood, that is.
Yeah, when you talk to guys that, are just getting married now and, you think but you really don't know until you have kids. And now you have 2 kids of your own, Luke and Waylon, and we just had them over for cupcakes and lunch.
How was that?
It was great.
They eat good at your place.
Luke is just chaotic. It's
wide open.
Wide open. It's great. It's been a long journey for, I think, both your mom and me. It's been the greatest experience of our lives, and and in many moments, for example, Kyle's wedding was a great moment for, I think, the whole family, and it was fabulous. And watching him evolve and watching Howie evolve, and certainly what you've been doing, and it's very rewarding. And you're on. It's like 7-Eleven. You're open.
Yeah.
And there's you don't shut it off. And that's what I think most people who don't have kids don't realize. And, you want to be as good a dad as you can be. And, I've said this to you a couple of times. I think, probably the first 6 or 7 years of your life, I was so obsessed with what I was doing in football. I was there, but, I wasn't fully there. In those days, you didn't have guaranteed money, and you were kind of living week to week, year to year, and wanted to provide for the family. And with you, we bought our first house, and then when we had Kyle, we bought our second house, and then when Howie came, we bought the third house in California, and then of course we moved here, and I think it was probably the best thing we've ever done. But my background, I think, has impacted my desire to be a good dad. My dad was, the older I get, the more I kind of appreciate what he had to deal with and what he went through. He was an orphan from birth to 18 years old. At 18, they gave you the option at the home that he was living in for orphans to go in the army or the military or stay until you were at legal age, which at that time was 21. And I think, he never really had a frame of reference of what a family kind of looked like. And I was fortunate to be surrounded by people like my grandmother and I grew up in a few different homes and, uncles and, people who were, played an important role in my life. And they always kind of pushed me down that road of being a good person, a good family person and being loyal. And, it's an evolving kind of job for me. I mean, I'm a better dad than I was yesterday. I'm a better dad than I was, 20 years ago. And, it's a never ending evolution for me.
Would you say you were kind of self-taught because of the circumstance?
Yeah, I think to a great extent I was. It's funny, but, when you grew up the way I grew up, so many of your impactful people are people you see on TV. It's like you watch, Leave It to Beaver or, fill in the blank, whatever show it was. And you see how that family acted and the dad acted. And that's a hell of a way to kind of, get your kind of notebooks for being a good dad. But that's how I got mine.
Which family was it?
The Waltons, you name it. All the shows, Leave It to Beaver, Bonanza, shows like that where there was a strong male impact figure in the home. And, it's like I always try to get you guys to watch It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
And, that to me it crystallizes how important family is and the impact you have on people, both in your family and externally. If I had never existed, would all those people that maybe I've impacted or you've impacted, it's the question that everyone can ask. You don't realize how impactful you've been to so many people. And walking in here, I saw a guy outside that, was impacted by you and said, "Hey, I just saw Chris the other day. What a great kid, great kid, but a great man." And I said, "Yeah, he takes after his mom."
And in the same vein, like somebody like your grandmother has infinite impact transitively. You just think about that one person who steps in and makes a difference for a kid where there's a relative void. And
she was amazing, not just for me, but for everyone. She had 4 sons and 1 daughter. My mom was, your grandmother was the one daughter. And grandfather passed before I was born. He was in the IRA, classic Irish Catholic guy, maybe drank a little too much, and never really got to know a lot about him, but she raised everybody. Yeah. I called her Ma, and I think everybody called her Ma, not just me. But she was the classic Irish Catholic grandmother who would just do anything for you and come get you in the streets. We had a dog named Pretty Girl. She'd walk down to the projects and, Howard, and get me back home and sent me out to live with my Uncle Billy when the busing riots started in Boston.
First time you saw grass?
Oh, trees, grass, a yard. And I was in charge of shoveling the driveway for Uncle Billy, and I was grounded for life, I think twice. I served 2 life terms with him. He was tough. But, impactful to me. He was a guy that I think had a great deal of love and compassion in his heart, but was that classic kind of guy that couldn't show it. And I think as the years have gone by, he's gotten better at that. But he was a good man. And I look back and I say, he had 4 kids of his own. He's working in the projects. He's driving a Maverick, with 100,000 miles on it and a hole the size of a basketball on the passenger floor from Milford into the South Boston projects. And he's doing it in the wintertime, and he's getting up at 5 in the morning. He's driving an hour to work and driving home, painting houses on the weekend. We were living, and I wasn't, when you don't understand where you're at, both financially and from just a lifestyle standpoint until you get out in the world. But
you didn't know at the time.
No.
That's the thing I was going to ask you is like, did you know plainly that, and to skip ahead, I'll ask you, your father, God rest his soul, I had a great relationship with him. And you guys did in a lot of ways, but in the moment though, you probably don't know you're missing certain things.
Well, he left when I was around 9, and at one point was homeless in a car on Main Street. And that's tough. You're in a mile square neighborhood in Charlestown, and your dad's living in a car, and that's a challenging thing. And I'm sure if I went to some kind of a therapist, there would be, maybe weeks and hours of therapy there. But like I said, the older I've gotten, and when you guys came into the picture, I thought it was important that we bring him into the family and try to give you guys the opportunity to spend time with him. And he was great with kids. He really was.
Yeah, it made us happy too, because y'all, even if it was like, hey, we're working on this thing, like y'all were getting along.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
we understood. Not
when we were up in Montana, he'd go up to this bar restaurant,
Ricciardi's.
And we've got you 3 young kids, and we're living minute to minute, and we're exhausted, and we've got this little dump of a cabin on the lake in Montana, but we had a ball there, right?
Yeah,
our first place. Matter of fact, you tried to buy the first place.
I did.
Yeah,
nostalgic.
He'd come in at 11, he'd come in at 11:30, and one night it was like 2:00 in the morning, and I met him at the door, and I said, pull out your wallet. And he's like, why? And I said, pull out your wallet. And, he was in his 60s at the time, and I said, what's wrong with this picture? I'm standing here waiting for you at 2:00 in the morning, a 60-plus-year-old man, and I'm exhausted. He said, well, I got caught in the fog. He's got that heavy. And I said, fog, where are we, Gloucester? No, we're in Montana. There's no fog.
The air is thin, man.
It was fun to have him as a part of that. And I felt it was important when your grandmother on mom's side passed away.
Yeah.
I thought it was important to, and I'm not sure how he took it when I first proposed it. And it was my idea. I said, you need to come down and live with us, Frank. And this was your grandfather, Frankie, who is just a classic, and good man. And I think he was kind of, whoa, how do I do that? Is it the right thing to do? And I said, what do you have up there? You have a card game once a week or twice a week? I said, we can find you a card. We can find you guys to play cards with, and you could be at a practice or a game or something with the kids every day. And those years we had with him down here in Virginia I think they were special. They were special for me. I mean, sitting and eating breakfast with him in the morning and, reading the paper with him, he was a classic. Francesco Adonisio.
A piece of work.
Piece of work, man. He was a great grandfather.
You had to let me in the house in Montana much later than your dad, though.
Yeah, and I chewed out the guy who was with you, Martin, our friend Martin, who's a cinematographer.
Remember, I tell this story sometimes. When you're in Montana and you go to a bar, and Dad doesn't do bars, but I look a lot like your dad. I think I might have a little night owl in me.
Yeah, makes sense. I remember the night I dropped you guys at that bar. We were at dinner at mile marker 17, and you wanted to go up to...
we wanted to go up to Big Fork.
We wanted to go up to Big Fork, or just short of Big Fork.
Yeah, there's a place called the Garden Bar, but you could really drop me off at whatever bar.
No, the bar we dropped you at was on the water.
Oh, the Raven.
The Raven.
So we dropped bar on Flathead.
We dropped him at the Raven, and it was a scene the likes of which I've never seen in my life. There were people jumping up and down, dancing,
Twirling
strobe
fire,
lights, twirling fire.
For people listening,
There were drones, and I said, they're either shooting a Bud Light commercial or this is a vampire movie.
Dude, it's an incredible bar because most nights you drive by it on the lake, it's a crapshoot. There might not be anybody in there. The view is beautiful. The drinks are great. But some nights you go in there and you pop up and you're like, where the fuck did these people come from?
Who are these people?
Just people from everywhere. It's a lot of the ski, like whitefish and that type of thing, snowboarders that come in and, they like to party.
So you jumped off the bow of the boat, you and Martin. Martin's like 60.
Yeah,
six years old.
So me and Martin, who's a Swiss guy.
Yeah,
Switzerland. We go down to Big Fork and we have a good time. And when you end up at 2 a.m. at a bar in Montana, you better have a ride home because they don't have cabs and they don't have Ubers. That's for
no
damn
Uber,
sure.
no cab.
We looked up 10 minutes later. We were at the hot dog stand because they have a hot dog stand. 10 minutes later, we look up, the parking lot's empty. We had to walk 8 miles and hitchhike the way home. This is 2-3 years ago. And literally, we're walking in the middle of the highway at 3-4 in the morning. It's beautiful out.
Singing,
big full moons.
running.
Just running.
And ironically enough, we had to get our invisible fence, dog fence, repaired.
Yeah.
So the guy comes by and, he says, it's funny. I said, where do you live? He said, I live right up by the bar you went to.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's really funny because he was walking down there the other night. He said, I swear to God, I heard someone on the road singing right there at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
It's like a highway. It's a highway, but there's nobody on it. So
two-laner.
Eventually we end up hitchhiking back. And Dad's thing is always, you've always told me this, if you're in trouble, call me at 2 a.m.
Doesn't matter.
If
what
you're
time?
drunk, and this was in high school, like no matter what, like if you end up in a bind, I'm not going to be mad at you. Well, I never took you up on that.
No, and
not even at 34.
But here's the thing: even at that age, when you're at our house, I can't sleep till you're home.
Right, and
Mom can sleep.
I get that. So just to illustrate what kind of guy you are, instead of me, when finally the Vietnam vet that picked us up in the middle of the highway and drove us the next 20 miles. Pulled into the driveway at 3 a.m. instead of you being pissed off at me because the dogs are barking and you're awake now and Lord knows you probably just got to sleep. You're mad because I didn't call you.
Right. I said, all you had to do was call me. I'd have driven up to Big Fork.
And that's the type of guy you are. That's the type of guy you are. And fatherhood is, by evidenced by your 34-year-old, the oldest kid in the family, keeping you up at night, a lifelong.
Listen, I watch you and you're such a better dad than I was at this point in your life and their life, because like I said, imagine if you were playing, it was 85 through 93.
But that was one of the main reasons I waited. Not because you didn't do a great job, best dad in the world, but I just know you've talked outwardly about like you wished you had more time.
Well, I was there, but my mind was always on, I've got this, my knees getting shot up or I broke my thumb or, and I've got to play this weekend, and it was always that challenge. And it was the off season of, I'm one contract to another contract.
Yeah. And it was probably stressful to, like nowadays, we talked about this the other night. You were playing check to check, relatively speaking. I mean, like you were defensive player of the year making $1 million.
No, I wasn't making. I was making far less than $1 million.
How much?
Probably about 150.
Defensive player of the year, you were making 150.
Yeah, it was defensive player of the year.
So that was your first contract. That was your first contract.
There were two defensive player of the year awards. One is the AP defensive player of the year. The other was the Hallis award, and they don't have the Hallis award anymore, but that was picked by general managers and coaches.
Got it.
And I was fortunate enough to co-win that. It was just one of those deals where, the money was different. I remember when Joe Klecko and Mark Gaston was signed for $500,000.
Right.
Bill Pickell and I, your godfather, were on the plane looking at the numbers and said, "Oh my God, $500,000."
We can stick with this, which is a lot of money.
No, but I mean, $500,000. I said we'd be set for life.
Yeah.
So my check, my rookie year, was $1,007 after taxes.
And you were in the lower tax rate.
$1,007. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And I was driving a used Coupe de Ville I bought for $9,000.
But I'm saying, you're making, by your own admission, $150,000 winning defensive player of the year. So like the ceiling of your productivity, this is what you have to show for it financially. And, you know, like it wouldn't have been like me if I was in that situation in a vacuum with no children. You're staring down every night when you get home at like your why. And that probably makes you even more desperate. I mean, than just being a poor kid who's trying to make his first big check and support his family or himself. You know, you like your motivation's right there.
Well, it's like when I went to Villanova, I left Uncle Billy and Aunt Ada's house, and they were phenomenal. But, you know, they had 4 kids of their own. And, you know, you're living week to week. I mean, I can't even imagine what an incredible sacrifice he made, taking a troubled 13-year-old in. And I left and went to college. I was 17 years old, my freshman year. And I literally had the clothes on my back, and I never left. I was there for Christmas. I was there for Thanksgiving. I was there for summer school all year. Because really, where do I go? I can't go back to Uncle Billy and Aunt Ada's because, you know, they'd done more than enough for me.
Yeah.
So it was time to just be in college and had no idea I was going to be drafted in the pros, you know, as high as I was. It was certainly a shock to both your mom and me.
So how do you do this? You're raising 3 kids, 3 boys who have like the expectations of being your kids, and you know how much scratching and clawing it took to be you and to play at your level and to achieve what you achieved, and you did it with essentially a gun to your head.
Well,
did that ever scare you? Or you looked at it, I feel like the other way, which was like, I made it. I have to provide. I'll worry about how to raise them. I mean, like I'll raise them to be good men, but I'll worry about how to raise them to be a little more desperate and that type of thing, to have a work ethic of somebody who's desperate.
The thing I didn't realize was, and we really didn't think about this because I think I don't look in the mirror and see the same thing that other people see. And your mom doesn't look at it that way either. We just think we're regular people. I never thought it would be as challenging for you guys as it was growing up as my son, particularly playing sports. You know, all the things you hear in the stands, and, you know, there's some really, you know, and that's kind of manifested itself in social media now. Yeah. Where in those days it was just at a little league game or at a high school game, and people say the damnedest things and act really crazy, and, you know, I don't know whether it's jealousy or, you know, envy or whatever it is, or just being spiteful. People can be, you know, they're great people, and I'd like to think that more often than not, people are really good. There are some people who aren't.
I think there's so many people who are supportive, but you just remember, it's human nature to remember the shitheads too.
Yeah, and now that you have kids, you understand how personal I take.
Yeah,
things.
That's the thing. You take. I mean, I've always been
I'm very Irish.
I'm like, dude, like, forget about that thing that happened to me at 17. I don't care about it. Why do you care about it?
You know, I imagine if somebody said something or did something to.
Imagine if somebody called your kid out at home plate in Little League when they hit their first home run because he missed home plate.
Yeah, and the you know, the team was crowding around you at home plate. He must have been down there with a magnifying.
I've told the umpire. I've told that story about that umpire. How'd you take that?
It was disappointing. No, it was disappointing because I knew it was such a, you know, it was your first home run.
When I think about putting myself in positions of a dad who's like, what the fuck, dude? Like that's, I think, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And I'll only know when it happens.
I'm like a duck on the water. I mean, it looks calm on the surface.
Yeah, but
underneath my legs are churning. I'm doing, there are many situations where I did everything I could not to explode.
Yeah, because part of you is like, and part of anybody, but especially somebody who played in the 80s for the Raiders and that sort of thing, and played, like I said, with a gun to their head. Like it's a different environment you have to be in, and like a different, like your nervous system's just constantly like wound up, and you in retirement have found a way to calm down.
I've gotten better at it. I think, you know, with time, and I think, for example, what a blessing Luke and Waylon are.
Yeah.
And I can do it all over again.
But in a chill state.
And I don't have the same responsibilities to them. I mean, I die for them. I'd throw myself in front of a bus for them. There's nothing I wouldn't do for them. But it's your responsibility to, kind of guide them, instruct them, push them to be the best possible person that they can be. And, when you guys were kids, the last thing I thought was you guys would play football.
Right.
Because we didn't push football.
Right.
And when you came on to play football, it was like, Mom was like, Mom's rainbows and sunshine. She's like, oh, it'll be fine. You know? And I said, you don't know. It's a great sport. And you and I had this conversation the other night as it applies to Kyle. It's a great game. Both of us loved playing the game and loved competing and loved our teammates and all that comes with it. And the coaches and the people that you've formed relationships with and a bond that only can happen in that kind of environment. But the flip side of it is, the carnage physically,
and getting those calls as the dad and like as a brother, like, Kyle just got hurt recently. It's like
when I got that call and then I had to call you, and it's shock to despair to, it's just sadness for him. And the same thing with you. When I get a call that you were hurt, you want to take that hurt and just, give it to me. I'm fine with that.
Right.
Been there, done that.
So how do you instill work ethic in your kids? Because that's a tricky thing, and I'm going through it with my kids, and me, you're looking at me sometimes like, relax, dude, like they're going to be fine. Because I'm just like, I look around, I see where I live, I see the other kids he's playing with, and those kids are comfortable like my kids, but they're not going to be under the same microscope.
Right.
And when they go do things, like they're not going to
You're looking at it through the lens of
me,
the son.
I've been,
you've been down the road that they're going down, and I understand that. And you've got to, fortunately, I had your mom, and, you had your mom. And fortunately for you guys and for you, you have Meg, who's just a stud. She's great, and she's just a great mom. And, you never know how you're going to be as a dad or you're going to be as a mom. And it's just to watch you two and the way you raise those boys is just heartwarming for me. I remember the day we were on the trail walking up to
Blue Hole
up there.
Back in Sugar Hollow, if you're a Charlottesville listener. My dad had never been there. I'm like...
I'd never been there, and I'm fresh off of, shoulder replacement surgery, and of course...
Well, I was like, man, this shoulder replacement's really sticking because he's doing bucket list items.
You hear wailing in the background. Come on, Papa, you can do it. So I've got to jump off the rock into the water. And I forgot that I should have kept my left arm down. And when I hit the water, it was like
pretty damn good though. I mean, for you, and you don't have to prove you're brave to anybody, but like football and like injuries have made you at times like not do as much because like your body's jacked up, and that can be debilitating, the pain you've dealt with, and also especially the shoulder, which is why when you got the replacement a couple weeks ago, I was so excited for you. And you're the type that you don't want, like, in this cliche older guy shit, not like you act like an old man, but I don't want any help. Don't worry about me. I don't want to take care of myself. And like literally this shoulder has been begging to be replaced for years.
17 years.
Including a lot of other stuff. But your first week out, you're jumping in a swimming hole you haven't been to in 30 years in Charlottesville. And I'm thinking to myself,
I didn't even know it existed.
He's a new man.
Yeah.
He's a new man.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, how much pain were you in before you get something like a shoulder replaced?
I didn't realize how much pain I was in until I had it done. 2 days off of full replacement, I was out of pain.
Yeah.
I was off the meds and out of pain, and it's been a blessing. For me to do like we were just talking before we went on, a lat pull down, or
like at any weight.
At any weight.
Just the motion of
or
it.
A bench, a pin-loaded bench machine, just at any weight it's another opportunity for me to expand what I can do. I'm looking forward to going to Montana. I go there tomorrow.
Yeah. You look great in a suit, but you were looking fucked up in a t-shirt.
No kidding. Tell me about it.
Because your shoulder was so bad that it, like the one was
would atrophied,
and it was like 3 inches lower than the other one.
Yeah. So
now it looks good.
Yeah, when I be in a suit, the one arm was longer than the other arm. Yeah.
Really. Mm-hmm. So when do you make it as a dad? Are there any moments where you're like, I can take a deep breath a little bit?
I think I've started to take a deeper breaths in the last 5-6 years. Although you don't stop worrying. I mean, the whole thing with you guys playing, with you and Kyle playing, and every play there's a pile, and you say in my head, I'm at work, and you can see me at work, and the guys will laugh about this at work. You could see me at work where we're live on television, and I have
you're looking down on the desk.
I have a television into the desk, and we all do for highlights. And I'm looking down at the desk, and then they'll come to me, and I'll pop up and do my
You get caught.
whatever point it is. But I'm watching play to play, and when you two are playing at the same time, not against each other, but at the same time, if the two plays sync up at the same time, where do I go?
Right.
And in my mind, I would always go to the guy that I felt was in the most duress, whether you had an ankle or, Kyle had this or had that. I would go on that particular play. That's the way I would rationalize it in my head as a dad. It's a blessing. And it was, it gave us so many incredible moments, but, it was also stressful.
Did you ever feel like, now you would have done all the same shit we've done, like playing hurt and that sort of thing, but were you ever like, you're being stupid?
Oh, looking back on it, I was stupid quite a bit.
But with us as a dad, like how hard was it to not be like, hey, dude, I've been through this?
It's funny. I thought about that. I was thinking about that the last 2 days.
With Kyle?
With you too.
Really?
You were trying to sell me when you had the ankle.
Yeah.
And you had the
I had tibial plateau fracture.
And
after the year we had the ankle, to put things in perspective.
Yeah. So you're sending me film of you doing get-offs and, and redirecting. And I know you, and I know your body, and I know your movements better than anybody. I know when you're hurt. I know when you're not. And I wanted to say to you, don't do it.
Right.
But it's not my place to do that.
Because when you're in that situation, you know this from being a player, your mind is trained, like the confirmation bias that I can do it as a competitor is so strong, or else you wouldn't be there. You're not thinking straight. And that's why, like, it's really hard to convince somebody to look out for number one in the NFL. If you're like a driven player that's not going to.
Well, you to me are somewhat of an old school player, and Kyle to a certain extent too. I mean, where you're playing hurt, and you're playing hurt a lot. And there's a difference between. Here's the big thing: are you hurt or are you injured?
Yeah.
If you're injured,
we say that a lot around here when Reed has his sick days and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Reed has not had a sick day in 2 years. No sick days at all.
I heard
Reed hasn't caught a cold in 2 years.
He's a great employee.
He's the best.
He's on ginseng or something.
He's the best. How good does it feel when your kid gets married? Kyle just got married.
It was great. It was amazing. One is to watch him evolve as a man, and I think we've both seen that. I always said to you guys, marry your mom. And what do I mean by that?
Yeah.
Marry a guy, girl, marry someone who's, energetic, smart, driven, can make you better. And I think both of you guys have done that. And I think Howie's on his way to doing that too.
No pressure.
No, there's no pressure at all. I mean, we've talked.
No pressure at all, but she's amazing.
I've talked openly to him, and I've talked openly to her, and I think Kate is special. I think Meg is special, and I just think you guys were fortunate to find that. It's a big world. How do you find that person, that one person that's right for you?
Well, a lot of times it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to feel like that one person. I think there's probably, with marriage, there's so many nights where you're just like, you're working at it. You know what I mean?
But you have to work at it.
It's got to be somebody that's willing to work, and you got to work well with that person.
Yes, and it's on both sides. You have to work. You have to make sacrifices. You have to be selfless to a great extent. We're fortunate. We all, and I'm very fortunate. My life changed when I met your mom.
More peaceful wedding, Kyle's or y'all's?
Oh, God. Kyle's was, well, Kyle, we almost had a moment at Kyle's, but it went great.
Don't worry about
It
that.
went great. It was a great wedding.
Yeah.
Our wedding, and the thought process I think on her side of the family was that slightly educated, everyone working in the projects or Hood's Milk, or my Uncle John was a cop in Boston. The Irish were going to come down and there was going to be a problem.
Yeah, it was going to be like gangs,
they're going to get drunk and there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a fight. They start banging on drums and there's going to be a fight. And as it turns out, I'm in the back of the room at the wedding reception, and I'm with my uncles. All four of my uncles were alive at that time. And all of a sudden I hear this bang. My cousin Michael, who's my best man, is sitting up on the head table, and two of Diane's relatives were fighting over a seating issue. And the one sucker punched the other and knocked him over the head table.
Golly.
At the wedding. And my Uncle Mike stood up, God rest his soul, and said, "You want us to take care of this?" And I said, "No, this is perfect.
Just let him fight.
This is like an ace in the hole for life."
Oh my God.
And as a matter of fact, Michael and I, who is my best man, we went to the wrong church on the way.
Stop it.
Yes. We opened up the doors and it was a Baptist church.
No.
Yes. And these poor people looking at us in tuxedos in the back of the room. And I'm 300 pounds and, sweating like crazy. It was about 95 degrees.
Where did you feel worse about being in the, were you late?
No, we weren't late, but, if we hadn't found it within the next 15 minutes, we would have.
And back then it was asking for directions.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not like you could pull it up on your phone.
Google Maps.
Google Maps, you guys.
So what were you more nervous, that moment or the moment you and Lyle were late to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that was bizarre. Lyle and I, we were very, and I think like a lot of athletes, we were superstitious. And it was funny because Lyle came in 1982 and it was a strike shortened year. And that year we practiced in Oakland and played in LA.
Yeah.
So every game was a road game. So the first week we go down to LA, none of us know LA. And we're staying at the Hyatt downtown or something. And we would go to pregame meal and chapel and, do all that. And they, at the end of each pregame meal, they do a kind of a roll call on special teams. I don't know why they did that, but they did that. L1, it's, these two players.
The reason they did that is because that's always when people are panicking, like, where the fuck is...
Right, right. So,
you're an offensive
it makes sense. It makes sense because, and I think I was on kickoff team and punt return team, and that was short-lived.
That's your fault. You blocked a punt at the blue-gray game.
Thank God. And thank God that I was only on those teams for a little bit because special teams is tough. But Lyle and I would go to pregame meal and we'd bring our bag down with us.
Yeah.
And we'd always take a cab to the game.
Right.
And we like to get to the stadium early. Lyle would get fully dressed, taped, dressed, spatted, the whole thing. T-shirt, the gray T-shirt and the silver pants. The Raiders wore silver and black pants. And he'd lay down on the floor in front of his locker and he'd go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'd come and I'd get dressed, partially dressed, and I'd go out and I'd run some 50s and, just get loose and get myself, because you were well ahead of everyone being there. So we get in the car. This is the first odd situation we had with travel. Was first week down to LA. We get in the car and we said we want to go to the stadium. And the cab driver, I don't know where he was from, but he wasn't from Los Angeles. And we end up pulling into a stadium, and it's Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
Now Lyle is just, the meters on red.
Yeah.
He wants to kill the cab driver.
Mm-hmm.
Do I fucking look like Don Mattingly or, whoever? And the guy ends up taking us to the Coliseum. But then fast forward to the Super Bowl the next year, we're down in Tampa Bay. And again, we do the pregame meal. We take a cab. And imagine doing this now. where
Yeah,
they block
dude, it's
off
crazy.
streets.
It's crazy.
There's police escorts. There's snipers up in the buildings. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, you're making that transition from the hotel to the stadium. It's a big deal. We took a cab.
Yeah.
We got stuck in traffic 3/4 of a mile from the stadium. And once again, Lyle is in the red on the cab driver not wanting to drive up on the sidewalk.
Right.
And, you know, I understand. And Lyle, we have to get out of the cab. Now we're walking through the parking lot filled with people.
He's not dressed, is he, in his football
No.
stuff? Okay.
No,
at
we're
least.
in street clothes, but we got our bag over his shoulder and he's angry. He's in a full lather. And, you know, we walked 3/4 of a mile to the stadium to the game.
That's unbelievable to
Yeah.
think about the you know, anybody knows the feeling of being late or feeling like you're stuck in traffic on the way somewhere. What if it's the Super Bowl?
And I'm 23 years old, 24. I just turned 24 at the time. And, you know, not knowing, here I am 24, we're in the Super Bowl. You know, I'm looking around me, you know, I've got, you know, Greg Townsend, Bill Pickel, you know, Matt Millen, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes, you know, Jim Plunkett, Marcus Allen, Cliff Branch. You know, it's it's a real deal team. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, this is easy. We'll get back here again.
Right.
And I didn't realize how difficult it was to get to the Super Bowl. And really, what crystallized that for me was, as the clock's running down in the fourth, Lyle's standing on the sideline, tears are running down his face.
Yeah.
He's literally so emotionally shot at the end of it and relieved because through his 13 years or whatever it was, through Denver and Cleveland and then to us in Oakland and Los Angeles, his journey to that game and winning was so much more challenging than it was for me going there as a 24-year-old.
Was there a guy that you played with that never got that hardware that you wished had?
You know, a lot of guys at the end. Chester McLaughlin, who passed away, good friend. Matter of fact,
Roommate.
He lived at our place.
How many
in
dudes lived
California.
at your place, man? Because I know
We took a lot of people in.
a lot of younger players.
Sean Jones,
Yeah.
you know, Chester. We had people we took a guy from Charlestown named Johnny McNeil,
Not a football player.
not a football player from the neighborhood.
He didn't work at like a florist shop, did he?
No, he didn't. And it turned out to be more challenging than we anticipated. And he ended up leaving and going back. And, you know, we took in a cousin. And Mom was, you know, that's the Irish in me. You know, yeah, you could come over and stay for a month or 2 months. And Mom always, I wrote the check and Mom had to cash it. You know, it was always her feeding people. And, you know, it was always somebody was over at the house living with us. And you had it too.
Yeah.
You know, there were a couple of bad situations where I had to tell people, you know, don't come back. At our house when you were really young. Somebody I won't mention, but he was into some things that he shouldn't have been into, and particularly in our house. And
they were it was coming home.
Yeah.
In LA, which was way different from you being a kid from Charlestown, you're right off the bat, you're a very good player. You know, you guys are Super Bowl champions relatively early. It's LA, you know. How hard is it to stay grounded in that situation? Like, were celebrities coming up to you? Who did you meet that you were just like surprised that they were a fan of you?
1980, I think it was 83. We're down in Lyle's house after a game on a Sunday night.
This is the one, yeah.
And Lyle lived in the tree section, really beautiful house. And, you know, Cindy and Lyle and, you know, I'm not sure if I think Justin was born at that point. You know, we'd have like 6 or 7 people who, and I didn't know. And this is pre kind of internet. And, you know, I was always a fan of certain genres of music, Led Zeppelin, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You know, there were a few albums that were impactful.
You love
Stevie
Van Morrison.
Wonder.
You love Van Morrison.
Van Morrison's.
Yeah.
But at that time, I really wasn't a
Boss.
Van Morrison guy. It was more Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life, you know, that kind of a thing. And there was a dimly lit kind of living room, kind of like our living room where the piano is. off to the side, but it was more of an open kind of format house where the kitchen opened up to the family room and the dining room. And there was a guy over there in a dimly lit room just kind of playing away at the piano a little bit. And he started playing 49 Bye-Byes. And it's a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young song. And this is before you know what people look like. And I said, boy, that's a great song. He said, thanks a bunch. What do you mean, thanks a bunch? Stephen Stills. And
He say I wrote it or something?
yeah, he said, I wrote it. Yeah, thank you, I wrote it. And Lyle would get him into the Coliseum with a sports writer's kind of credentials.
Yeah.
So there you'd be in your locker after a game, and you've got 8 or 10 people out in your locker doing an interview, and there's, Steven, and no one knows.
Speaking of the celebrities, remember when you introduced me to Charlton Heston and it was like your shining moment?
Yeah.
What did I say to Charlton? What did I say to him? I fucked up the
Ben-Hur.
I said, man, I was
Loved
like,
you in Spartacus.
I was like 3 years old or so. I was like 6 years old or
Loved
something.
you in Spartacus.
You took me to some, I don't know what it was. You were
It was
playing
a premiere
for some movie.
No, it was a premiere for Firestorm.
Oh, well then I was like 9.
Yeah.
So the funniest thing about it was I know he was like your favorite, and I was just trying to make conversation.
Well, he was one. We talk about the impactful people that you see on TV when you grow up the way that I grew up. You kind of idolize, whether it's John Wayne or it's somebody that captures your attention. But Charlton Heston was Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
I mean, can we
Spartacus?
That's like I'm
Spartacus, evidently.
No, Spartacus.
I'm fucking around.
No,
but I just remember thinking like, damn, that was Dad's hero, and I had the movie wrong. But I was 9 or something. So
Yeah.
what 8-year-old is watching?
No, I met. It's interesting. I met a guy who I met, and I'm such a huge fan of, and I think you are too, Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
And
his son played for the Rams.
Yeah.
And Steven Jackson and him are real tight. And by the way, Tenet is a great movie.
Tenet,
too.
I've watched it 4 times to try to understand it.
Yeah.
Maybe Denzel can call and explain it to me.
Right.
But such a huge fan of Denzel's, and I met him at a thing. It was after I think I was doing between Firestorm and Broken Arrow. Mm-hmm. They had a kind of a thing, the upfronts in Vegas. And it was kind of the entertainment, kind of the year looking forward, and I was the newcomer kind of category, and I was there to promote it, and Denzel came up and said hello, and
That's so cool.
And I didn't have a thing to say.
You were just frozen.
I was like, I just froze.
Is that about the only time you froze?
That's about the only time I've ever frozen.
Meeting Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I did movies with John Travolta and Kevin Costner and Kurt Russell.
The bad guy from RoboCop. Did you know you did a movie with the bad guy from RoboCop? I'm trying to think of his name. I watched RoboCop the other night. I don't know. He was in 3,000 Miles to Graceland, which you also worked with Kevin Costner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner was great. Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner were like athletes. And they were athletes. So I think their approach to doing, I think, what they do, and they do so well. I'd watch anything Kevin Costner's in. I watch anything Kurt Russell's in, and the same thing goes for Denzel Washington. But they approach it like an athlete,
Right.
and that's refreshing because there are some people in that business who don't.
Was that the thing you did after football that surprised you the most?
Totally. I did Broken Arrow. The director was a guy by the name of John Woo.
Yep.
From Hong Kong, and I was only supposed to be there for 3 weeks. And here's Mom back in Virginia with you 3, setting up ramps in the pool, jumping bicycles into the water.
Pool. That was fun.
Yeah, but not fun for Mom.
No.
And I was supposed to be there for 3 weeks, and it's John Travolta. It's like a $50 million film, and at that,
$50 million's a lot of money
50
now.
million
in
at that
movie
time,
sense, but even more back then.
More now. And it was great, and I was having fun for a couple of weeks, and then John Woo comes into the trailer and tells me he's going to make me a bigger part of the movie, and that, I'm John Wayne. I remind him of John Wayne. And I'm like, okay. So now I'm calling your mom, and I'm saying it's going to be another 2 weeks. It's going to be another 3 weeks. It's
They want me to stay. I'm John Wayne.
Right. Which is lofty. Yeah.
But it's just like.
So anyway, it ends up being like maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
And poor mom's, fighting for her life back here.
Yeah.
With you three.
But what was it like meeting those guys? Were they cool to you? Or were they kind of like, oh, you're an athlete?
No, Kevin Costner was fabulous. Very supportive and, went over scenes with me. And, Kurt Russell was a great guy. And John Travolta was fabulous. That was the longest because he and I were together a lot for a lot of the scenes. I didn't really spend a lot of time with anyone else in the cast because we'd be in a Hummer driving, chasing someone, and really it's a camera truck.
Right.
And you're out in the middle of nowhere. We shot in the dead center of Montana in Lewistown.
Yeah.
And then we shot in, where else did we shoot? It was somewhere remote place in Montana also. So
didn't we go to Whistler or was that?
That was Firestorm.
That was for Firestorm.
Yeah, that was up in Canada.
That was for your lead role. The craziest thing to me was seeing my dad actually get kicked out of a train by somebody I know could not kick him out of a train, Christian Slater. It was a tough pill to swallow.
It's called acting.
Yeah, well, you did a terrific job.
Yeah.
You did a terrific job.
I'm selling that. Christian Slater's kicking my ass.
Yeah, but I mean, it's crazy. You were the alpha for years in your world.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're a rookie again, and probably on top of that, there are certain people that have the resentment of you're an athlete doing something you're not.
You know what? Anyone who really knows me knows that I'm humble.
Yeah.
I went into the environment trying to be a team guy and trying to work with people. Now, if someone didn't act properly, I certainly would jade my opinion of them. But as I mentioned, the people that I just mentioned were incredibly giving.
Who would you not mind getting killed by in the movies now if you came back and played another role?
Denzel.
Would you go back if Denzel would kill you in a movie?
Sure.
We have that as a commitment.
Sure.
Okay. It's on the record. You did commercials for much of my childhood.
Ooh.
What was the craziest the job that you took, and what was one that maybe you almost took and you're glad you did?
Well, the craziest one was I did Radio Shack for 6 years, and shot 150 commercials with Terry Hatcher. And I would literally be at one of your games,
right,
with holding your mom's hand, and someone would come up to me down in Norfolk or wherever we were, and say, "Boy, I love those commercials you do with your wife." I'm like, my wife's right here.
And you're trying to get me killed, or
you're trying to get
yourself
my
killed.
wife was close to stabbing me anyway because people thought I was married to Terry Hatcher.
Yes, which
I get. If your mom was doing commercials with some guy, and
you know what, I guess it was written a little bit unorthodox there.
Yeah, they
took liberties.
Well, I don't know if they took liberties, but the chemistry was good. They were really innovative commercials. The colors, the way they shot it. Barry, who was a big part of that for the production team, was great. It changed the way people did commercials. It was you saw people copying the style of commercial that we shot, and it was a very successful campaign. The one that I walked away from, and it was just Steve calling me up, and he said, "Look." The old Steve, when he says, "Hey, look, I'm obligated to run this by you
and tell you."
and tell you. So I think it was like, I want to say Viagra or something,
I know it was because I was like, "Hey, Dad, if you do this commercial, I'm gonna have to leave."
You told me no. What you told me was, "Don't worry about me. I'll jump off the roof at St. Anne's."
I was like, "Don't worry." If my dad's the boner pill guy,
they were offering a lot of money.
You walked away. Hey, I appreciate you, man.
No, there've been a lot of things like that. There were things that I just wouldn't do.
Your brand, yeah. I mean, like you had to think heavily about a brand. I mean, you're coming out of football. You don't have the money people have now. So like,
we walked away from a lot of things that were. There were things that I just wouldn't do because I didn't like the impact that it could potentially have on you guys.
Well, I appreciate the Viagra thing.
Yeah.
And I actually liked the commercials where you were shooting a rattlesnake with beer.
That was good, Coors. That was a good commercial.
And you're not even a drinker.
No, I mean, at the time I would have a Coors every once in a while.
Really? You used to have a beer every once in a while?
Coors Light, yeah. Those were good commercials.
They were great commercials.
We shot those in Colorado in the middle of nowhere. And matter of fact, at one point, we got snowed in to the town that we were in. It was so remote.
Yeah.
But they were great. They did great commercials. I was killing rattlesnakes.
I really liked that. Honestly, I liked that commercial.
I forgot about that.
NFL on Fox. How did that happen? Because it's been now going on
29 years.
29-year marriage, dude.
I come out of football and I'm down at the Super Bowl, and I hadn't come out of football yet, but I announced my retirement at the Super Bowl. Had a press thing, and it's funny because I played against John Elway a lot.
Yeah.
And I would consider John to be one of the, if not, when he's in the conversation for
I don't think people now understand because they saw John, Super Bowl winning John, which was late in his career.
Yeah.
He was a different player than when you played.
Yeah, he was Mahomes with a bigger arm.
Yeah.
If you went up and under from the left defensive end position, which you can relate to, he'd bootleg outside, you'd get sealed in, he'd have 6 seconds, throw the ball across the field 80 yards on a dime.
Yeah.
He was just an amazing player. But in those days, we never spoke. There was no real camaraderie or, you weren't texting one another. There weren't any texts. And that night before the press conference when I retired, he and I sat in a restaurant bar that they had closed down and, had a number of drinks and really the first substantial conversation I'd had with him. And then I retired the next morning. CBS had just lost the NFL.
What do y'all talk about? Years you're trying to kill him. And then he
just happy you're retiring, great career, blah, 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 the usual stuff and go to the press conference and the Raiders don't know I'm retiring.
Right.
And I retire. And, I played with Art and also played for Art Shell.
Yeah.
So it was an awkward position to be in, but for reasons that we won't get into in great length, it was time for me to go. And, they were disappointed and offered me a 3-year guarantee, first-time guarantee contract. And I turned it down. And, I think when you really emotionally move on from it, you can't.
It's really hard to go back.
You can't open that door. It's hard to open that door back up. And CBS had just lost the NFL package. And Fox, who was then famous for The Simpsons and all this cartoon kind of stuff. And, the concern was, oh my God, the Cartoon Network is
Cartoon Network, huh? That's what
people were kind of saying that. And so here we were, there's no Fox Sports.
Right.
None. It's a blank slate.
Right.
David Hill is in the hotel and wants to meet with me. So we meet and we hit it off. I go out for, Steve talked me into going out for a kind of an audition out in LA. And it's the first time I met Terry in passing, like, hey, Terry, how are you, Howie? And hey, Howie, how you doing? And at a Super Bowl, and we went our separate ways. We didn't speak. When I did that, he was kind of spearheading the kind of audition. And I had overworked, over-researched. I had, they gave me a hypothetical.
You worked like a football player.
Yeah. I took the way I worked for a game and worked it into that show.
Right.
And what I failed to realize was what they really wanted. Mm-hmm. What they really wanted was something different. They wanted something more off the cuff. Everything was formal. You did a pregame show. It was a half an hour format. No one had ever done an hour-long pregame. And a player at that point had never gone from the field right to the studio. Mm-hmm. And David Hill, he signed John Madden, he signed Jimmy Johnson, he signed Terry Bradshaw, and I had what anyone would describe as a horrible audition. I was trying to be Bob Costas, and I'm not Bob Costas. I'm trying to be the typical broadcaster who's giving you facts and figures, and I've spoken to Paul Tagliabue, and I literally had spoken to everybody, and I had a pile of papers. When in reality, what they were looking for is what I think people have come to know and like about the Fox show. It's just kind of fun and off the cuff. It's like we're in our family rooms just joking around with one another. And if somebody screws up, you laugh and you joke around with them, and it's lighthearted and it's not scripted. It's not over rehearsed. But no one told me that. And Terry pulled me aside and David Hill pulled me aside and said, "Where's the guy we saw in interviews?
Right.
Who was like that?" And I said, "Well, no one told me that." And, finally Terry kind of got me dialed into what, they were looking for, and ended up getting the job. And it was life-changing. And did I think it would be 28 years? Hell no. Terry and I, it's interesting because we're so different. He's from Louisiana. I'm from Boston. He's Baptist. I'm Catholic. He's a quarterback. I'm a defensive lineman. He's a Steeler. I'm a Raider. We're just different people. But for whatever reason, as our careers have evolved and our time at Fox has evolved, he's like the older brother I never wanted. He's just a lot of fun. And for you guys, he's been like Uncle Terry. And the great thing about Terry is when, something good happens to you guys or for you guys, he's as excited as I am. And, he's as sad when, Kyle gets hurt and he sends me a text, and, he's a good friend. But it's an unlikely pairing. But for whatever reason, the chemistry between him and me, and I know his rhythms and he knows mine, and it's really been a fun pairing. And Jimmy's been great. He's someone I've leaned on over the years when it comes to contracts with you guys, and whether it's do I leave or do I go, do I sign, do I not, things like that, and what money should be involved, and bird in the hand versus
it's like looking in on, it's like eavesdropping on meetings that were happening upstairs.
Yeah,
like your whole career, and now you got a friend who was a head coach.
Not only a head coach, but built a 3-time Super Bowl champion team.
He was doing buying the groceries and then making dinner.
He's the smartest guy in the room. It's been amazing. We've been to Afghanistan. We've been to, Qatar, shows at the military academy, and, bases around Terry and I have traveled around the world to bases. And
you've done amazing games in person.
Amazing games.
What's the crazy, if you had one great memory where you guys were on the field, besides like the Super Bowl stuff that you got to?
Well, I was in Seattle for, I think it was the NFC Championship game. I think it was the NFC Championship game with San Francisco and Seattle.
What a game.
What a game. And I'm just getting done with...
Aaron had the interview with Sherm. That's when Sherm made the big play on Crabtree. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are, and we've done our what we call a rehearsal, but it's really a lighting and sound check, and you're just going through the sections and the order that we're going in. That part of it's structured, but the rest of it's not. So we do that, and I'm walking out on the field and towards the sideline because I want to go watch Russell warm up and all that, and say hello to some players because we rarely get the opportunity to do that. And I hear this voice behind me, and it's Howie. And I turn around, and it's Dave Matthews. And Dave Matthews says, "Dave Matthews." And I said, "Yeah, I know who you are, Dave."
You're like the mayor of the town.
Right.
And you live in Seattle.
And we had been in, I think is it Crutchfield that's up on 29?
Yeah, the stereo spot.
We were in that store one time together, and we both, I think, took the same kind of approach where I didn't want to bother him, and he didn't want to bother me. So we
you do that. You don't like. You're a lifelong Bruce Springsteen fan. I've been backstage with you at a Bruce Springsteen concert in Charlottesville, and you didn't even stop him. He said, "Hey, Howie, how you doing?" And he just you were like,
He was shirtless actually, walking out of his dressing room.
Was he yoked?
And he looked. Yeah, he was kind of. He was kind of for a guy that
He had great stage presence at that age.
Yeah.
And we got to see him
Yeah.
When he did
We
the
saw him on
Broadway
Broadway.
show.
I saw him twice on Broadway. He was great.
Is that the coolest thing we've done? It's up there.
I tell you what, the coolest thing we've ever done, to be honest, that was cool. Coolest thing we've ever done is the Red Rock.
Hell yeah, dude.
I mean, I was like, this is a whole nother world.
And we went and saw My Morning Jacket for people listening. I took, we went up there. We were doing a couple night deal the first year I was out of football, and I was just doing everything I always wanted to do.
I was so obsessed with just getting the bills paid, and I never took the time to do things like that.
Yeah.
And we went to that, and your mom and I had just the greatest time.
I remember sitting there and I'm watching you guys because to spare you guys, we got you seats away from my group of buddies.
Yeah.
So we were on one side of the amphitheater and they were on the other. But you can see when you're in Red Rocks, like if you have a buddy sitting somewhere because of the lighting and because of the way things are,
it's amazing. For those of you who haven't been there,
it's a special place. But I'm looking over and I'm just seeing you because you stand out among the crowd, and you and Mom are just standing there completely stationary, just blown away by the music and the
light show.
But you're doing it authentically. There's a lot of people around you who are having a good time because they're on PEDs, enjoyment PEDs. But you guys, I'm just watching you. It's like, where's Waldo?
Yeah.
It's like a crowd of hippies. And then you guys standing there.
And then we went up and went backstage and then went up on the top.
We were under the rocks. Yeah.
Met some of the band members.
Yep,
and
you got to meet the guys.
They were great. An amazing group.
That was amazing. That'll probably be on my list. And then when we went to Catalina Island, that's a great memory as well.
Oh God.
We went for
what do they call
for
that?
Boy Scouts or whatever.
No, it was
back then they were calling it Indian Scouts, which is not the correct nomenclature.
It was Little Indian,
which is still not the correct nomenclature.
No.
But back then that's what they called it, and so it was like we had to think of names for ourselves and stuff, and we
it was like you were
you were Big Thunder, I was
Big
Little
Thunder, Little Thunder. And
so as Catalina, when we lived in LA, that was like a place that I guess rich Indian Scouts went.
I guess I didn't track the history. We were on a ferry that should have been about a 14-minute
3-hour
no,
tour.
It should have been like a 14, 15-minute boat ride. And there was a storm and there were huge waves. And the boat was just going up and down and up and down. And people were throwing up everywhere. The boat smelled like vomit. It was terrible. And by the time we got there, it ended up being about an hour kind of ride over there to the island. And then I come to find out the hike up to where we're staying in the cabin that we're staying in, it's like with bunk beds and you're with, 5 other fathers and sons. And you're passed out by that point. I've got you over my shoulder and I've got the bags and we're walking and we're walking and we're walking and it's dark out and we get into the place and there's a storm and I put you on the top bunk because I was afraid that
you were going to just crush the bunk bed.
If I were in the top bunk and the top bunk collapsed, it's going to crush you. Didn't sleep a wink. Then the window, which was a big window, came crashing in. With the wind was so bad.
Yeah.
So nobody slept the whole time. So yeah, that was, and
it was not like I remember it in Step Brothers.
No.
Catalina. There was no wine mixer.
No.
We were roughing it. This was old Catalina before they gentrified it. I'll always remember that. To finish up here, I want to talk just a minute about your football and then what's next here. I mean, like, if you weren't a football player, what would you be?
It would probably be something that, if I hadn't gotten to Villanova, you think about it, it's the George Bailey effect. What if I don't meet your mom?
Right. Yeah. I don't know what you're doing, honestly. I
don't know what I'm doing. I could be working in the projects. I could be a cop, maybe the military. There weren't a lot of options coming out of,
boxing. There was boxing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a hypothetical and it's hard to kind of imagine what it would be like. I think meeting your mom my sophomore year at Villanova changed everything. And Villanova was perfect for me. You know, it was kind of an under the radar Division I team. I don't think we ever really played on TV except for maybe the Clemson game. So people didn't really know who you were. I mean, if I got hit by a bus, no one would have been on page 3. You know, it was I wasn't really a star.
What's on your bucket list here? I mean, you know, now you got a good shoulder and you're going to go out and seize the day. What are we doing the next 50 years?
Well, every year my bucket list starts with Montana.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to getting there. Love being home here in Charlottesville, sitting on the back porch with your mom. And
We're not doing this exercise very well. You just listing things that you already do. We need to think of some new shit. Are we going to the pyramids?
You know what? I'd like to.
We're going to
but
dive into Shark Tank.
no.
You don't want to get in
No.
like go out to
No.
with the sharks.
No. Why would I want to survive as long as I've survived and die in a Shark Tank?
Name a person that's died in a Shark Tank, man.
I don't know.
You can't.
I don't know. I haven't
can't.
done a lot of research on Shark Tanks.
Okay. So
In the movies, hey, listen, I saw
gotta
Jaws.
work on the
I
bucket
saw
list.
Jaws. You saw Jaws.
Yeah.
You didn't go in the ocean for how long?
No, because there were no tanks at the time. Now they have a whole industry where you can get in there and see Jaws close up.
Yeah, they had a tank in Jaws.
Kilimanjaro, you think one of these years?
Maybe.
I think I would feel like your parent.
Too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I couldn't watch you struggling with the altitude or something. I couldn't watch you like if your knee was messed up or
You just don't know.
Yeah, so fuck that. You're not
Yeah.
going to Kili.
You don't know.
How many more years at Fox? You got the new media deals mean you got a job for at least 7, as many as 11 more if you want. Barkley said he's retiring at 60. You're already past
61.
60.
Yeah.
So how long do you really want to do this?
I think we're going to sign an extension that would put me 5 years moving forward. So, you know, revisit it at 66 and see where we are. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what how long is Terry going to do it? And I've asked him that, and he doesn't think like that.
That's the hard part because it's about the guys, and it's like if
Right,
somebody
and
leaves.
it really is about the guys.
Yeah.
And Tony Gonzalez has been a really good addition.
He's got a good future, huh?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He gets it. Great player, obviously. Arguably the best tight end ever. And, you know, Gronk's in that conversation, but, you know, Tony was amazing. And he's not a guy that walks around, you know, sticking his chest out. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's chill.
Yeah.
Any chance you grow a beard out or cut your hair at any point here?
Shorter? Cut my hair shorter?
I don't know. Change your hairstyle maybe, or is it it's pretty set where it is?
You know,
It looks to be set. It looks like it's not going anywhere or moving.
It's hard to. I will tell you this. I used to go down to Staples Barbershop a lot. And then, you know, unfortunately, you know, the barbers got older and Mr. Staples passed, and missed that. It's hard to find a good barber.
Howie Long, folks. He's my dad. It is Father's Day this weekend. I hope everybody has a great Father's Day.
Yeah.
Love
Happy
you,
Father's
Pops.
Day to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Love you
it.
too.
Yeah, man. Same goes to you. And we'll get him back soon. Before next Father's Day. Maybe this football season we'll have him on intermittently. All right, thanks, Pops.
Have your guy call my guy.
I'll have my guy call your guy.
Uh,
I'm gonna just text you direct at 1 a.m.
What's new? What's different?
That'll do it.